My dad asked me to lie to police about my brother. My father called me before the police did. That was the first thing I remembered later. Not the shouting from the backyard, not the broken glass on Aunt Ruth's patio, not my brother standing over a man with blood on his mouth, breathing like he had just run a mile. I remembered my phone buzzing in my hand at 11:42 that night while I sat in my car outside my apartment, still wearing the dress I had worn to Dad's retirement party. Dad's name lit up the screen. When I answered, he didn't say hello. He said, "You need to tell them your brother was with you." I blinked at my dark windshield. "What?" "If the police ask," he said, quieter now, "tell them Owen was with you inside the house when it happened." My stomach tightened. "Dad, I saw him." There was a pause, then his voice changed. Not angry, worse, disappointed. "You saw confusion, you saw people panicking, you did not see what you think you saw." I sat there with my keys in my lap. 10 minutes earlier, I had left the party because Dad told me everything was under control. Now he was asking me to lie. "Who got hurt?" I asked. Dad exhaled hard. "A man named Victor. He's at the hospital. He'll be fine." "Then why do I need to lie?" "Because your brother cannot survive another mistake." That sentence landed like a warning. Another mistake. Owen had made plenty of them. He had borrowed money he never repaid. He had crashed Dad's truck and blamed black ice in July. He had lost jobs because every boss was jealous, every coworker was against him, every rule was unfair. But assault was different, and I had seen enough to know this was not nothing. At the party, Victor had been standing near the side gate, arguing with Owen in low voices. I didn't know Victor well. Dad introduced him as someone from his old department, a man who had worked with him years ago. Owen looked furious. Victor said something I couldn't hear. Owen shoved him. Then Victor stumbled back, hit the patio table, and went down hard. The whole backyard froze. Dad moved faster than I had seen him move in years. He grabbed Owen by the arm and pulled him toward the garage. Then he looked at me. "Go home," he said. I had obeyed because I was stunned. Because Dad was Dad. Because in our family, when my father gave an instruction, people followed it before they understood it. But now, sitting in my car, I finally understood what he wanted. He wanted me to clean it up. Again. "Dad," I said, "I can't tell police he was with me." "You can," he said. "And you will." My throat went dry. "Why are you protecting him like this?" Another pause. Then Dad said, "Because if Owen goes down, this whole family goes down with him." The line went dead. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, 2 officers were at my door. They were polite, almost gentle. They asked about the party, about the argument, about where I was when Victor fell. I thought about Dad's voice. "You need to tell them your brother was with you." Then I thought about Victor on the patio, his hand twitching against the broken glass. "I saw my brother shove him," I said. One officer wrote it down, the other watched my face. "And where was your father?" I swallowed. "He pulled Owen away." "Did your father say anything to you afterward?" I could have protected Dad from that part. I almost did. Then I heard his voice again. "This whole family goes down with him." "Yes," I said. "He told me to go home." They left after 20 minutes. Dad called 2 minutes later. I didn't answer. He called again. Then Owen texted me, "You really did it." 3 words, no denial, no fear, just accusation. By noon, my aunt called, then my cousin. Then Dad's neighbor, who had no business having my number. Everyone said the same thing in different ways. Family protects family. Owen was scared. Victor probably started it. Dad was under stress. I needed to fix what I had said before it became official. But the strangest call came from my mother. Mom and Dad had been divorced for 12 years, and she usually avoided anything involving him. When I told her what happened, she went quiet. Then she said, "Was the man's name Victor Hale?" I sat up. "Yes, why?" Mom breathed in sharply. "What did your father tell you about him?" "Nothing. Just that they worked together. He didn't invite Victor to that party by accident." My skin prickled. "What does that mean?" Mom hesitated. Then she said, "Ask your father what Victor knew about Owen." That was the moment the story changed. Until then, I thought Dad was protecting Owen because Owen was his favorite. Painful, but familiar. Owen had always been the son who needed rescuing. I had always been the daughter who understood, adjusted, forgave, and helped carry the weight. But Mom's voice told me this was bigger than favoritism, so I went to Dad's house. He opened the door before I knocked twice. He looked older than he had the night before. His hair was flattened on one side and his eyes were red. "You gave a statement," he said. "Yes," he stepped back, letting me in. The house still smelled like party food and spilled beer. Half the folding chairs were stacked near the wall. A banner that said "Happy Retirement" hung crooked over the fireplace. I looked at it and suddenly felt sick. "Why was Victor there?" I asked. Dad's face hardened. He was invited. Mom said I should ask what he knew about Owen. For 1 second, Dad's expression cracked. Then he recovered. "Your mother talks too much." "What did Victor know?" Dad rubbed his forehead. "You need to leave this alone." "No," he stared at me. I had never said no to him like that before, not really. "Victor came to make trouble," Dad said finally. "What kind of trouble?" He had old information, things that should have stayed buried. About Owen, Dad looked toward the backyard. That was answer enough. I stepped closer. "What did Owen do?" Dad's jaw worked like he was chewing back the truth. Then he said, "Your brother made a mistake when he was 19. Owen is 32. "Exactly," Dad snapped. "It was over. It was handled." "What was handled?" Dad turned on me. "You think truth fixes everything. You think telling police every ugly detail makes you noble? Sometimes truth burns down people who don't deserve it. Victor is in the hospital. And Owen is my son." I stared at him. There it was, the line I had been standing on my entire life. Owen was his son, and I was what? The witness. The helper, the one expected to understand. I left without another word. That evening, Victor's wife called me. Her name was Nina. Her voice shook, but she was steady enough to ask if we could meet. I almost said no. It felt disloyal. Then I remembered that everyone in my family had asked me to protect Owen, but no one had asked if Victor could speak. We met at a coffee shop near the hospital. Nina had a folder in her hands. She looked exhausted. "I'm sorry to involve you," she said. "But Victor told me that if anything happened at that party, I should find you." A chill moved through me. "Why me?" "Because he said you were the only one in your family who might still tell the truth." She opened the folder. Inside were copies of checks, bank statements, a police report from 13 years earlier, and one photograph of a young woman I didn't recognize. Her name was written on the back. Sabrina Cole. "What is this?" I asked. Nina's eyes filled. "Victor's niece." I looked down at the papers again. 13 years earlier, Sabrina had accused Owen of attacking her after a summer party. My breath stopped. "No," I whispered. Nina nodded slowly. "She reported it. Then she withdrew the complaint." I already knew the next part before Nina said it. "My husband always believed your father pressured her." The coffee shop noise faded. I saw Dad's face. It was handled. "What does Victor have to do with it?" He was the responding officer. I gripped the edge of the table. "Dad said they worked together." "They did. Victor was a detective. Your father was his supervisor." I looked at the checks. There were 3 made out to Sabrina's mother. Thousands of dollars, signed by my father. Nina said, "Victor kept copies because he thought one day your father would go too far." I could barely breathe. "Owen assaulted Victor because of this?" "Victor confronted your father at the party. He told him he was done staying quiet." "Why now?" Nina slid one more page across the table. It was a letter, not typed. Handwritten. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Owen's. The letter was addressed to Sabrina. I only read the first line before my eyes blurred. "I know Dad paid you, but that doesn't mean I'm sorry." I pushed the letter away. Nina's voice softened. "Victor found it last month. Sabrina kept it all these years." The room tilted. The betrayal I thought I was uncovering had another layer. Dad wasn't just protecting Owen from one violent moment. He had been protecting him for 13 years, and now he wanted me to become part of it. When I got home, Dad was waiting outside my apartment. He stood beside his car with his arms folded. For a second, I felt like a teenager again. Then I remembered Sabrina, Victor, the checks, the letter. Dad said, "You met with her." I didn't ask how he knew. "What did you do?" I asked. His mouth tightened. "I saved my son's life." "No." "You bought a girl's silence." She withdrew her complaint. "Because you paid her family." "Because her family needed help." I laughed once, but it came out broken. "Is that what you call it?" Dad stepped closer. "You were 17. You have no idea what was happening then. I know Owen hurt someone. You know what people told you. I know you covered it up. His eyes flashed. And I would do it again. That hurt more than I expected. Not because I was surprised, because I wasn't. Why? I asked. Why him every time? Dad looked away. For the first time in my life, he seemed ashamed. Then he said, because I already failed one child. I frowned. What does that mean? He closed his eyes, and there it was, the deepest layer, the thing under all of it. Dad said, before your brother was born, your mother and I had another son. I stared at him. The world went silent. What? He lived 3 days. My hands went cold. No one told me that. Your mother couldn't speak about it. I couldn't either. What does that have to do with Owen? Dad's voice cracked. When Owen was born, I promised myself nothing would take another son from me. I backed away. That is not love. His face twisted. You don't understand. No, I said. I do. You lost a child, and then you made Owen untouchable. Dad didn't answer. And every time he hurt someone, you called it protection. His silence was worse than denial. I thought of my childhood. Owen breaking my things and Dad telling me not to provoke him. Owen stealing from Mom's purse and Dad saying boys acted out. Owen screaming at girlfriends, losing jobs, lying, drinking, raging. Every time, Dad had softened the consequence before it reached him. And every time, Owen learned the same lesson. Someone else would pay. This time, Dad had chosen me. Did Owen know? I asked. Dad looked at me. Know what? That you were going to ask me to lie. Dad's hesitation answered before his mouth did. He was scared. I stepped back like he had touched me. You both planned it. It wasn't like that. Yes, it was. I saw it clearly. Owen shoving Victor wasn't a sudden panic after a random argument. Victor had come with proof. Dad had tried to manage him. Owen had exploded. And the moment Victor hit the ground, they both turned toward the same solution. Me, the reliable one, the clean one, the one police would believe. Dad said, please, if you change your statement, this can still be contained. That word, contained, not fixed, not made right. Contained, I shook my head. No, his face hardened again. Then you are choosing strangers over your family. I opened my apartment door. No, I said. I'm choosing the people our family hurt. Then I went inside and locked him out. The next morning, I brought Nina's folder to the detective handling Victor's case. I told them everything. The phone call, Dad's request, the old checks, Owen's letter. They didn't promise me anything. Real life doesn't work that way. They asked questions for 2 hours. Then they asked if I would be willing to testify if needed. My voice shook when I said yes. Owen was arrested 2 days later. Not just for assaulting Victor. Investigators reopened Sabrina's old case. I didn't know what would come of it, and I knew reopening a wound was not the same as healing it. But for the first time, Owen wasn't being handed an escape route before consequences could reach him. Dad was charged weeks later for witness tampering. When I heard, I sat on my kitchen floor and cried so hard I couldn't stand. Not because I thought he was innocent, because part of me still wanted him to be. That was the ugliest truth of all. You can know someone hurt people and still grieve the version of them you needed. Mom came over that night. She didn't say I told you so. She sat beside me on the floor and said, I should have told you about the baby. I wiped my face. Yes, I said. You should have, she nodded. Then she said, but grief does not excuse what your father became. That sentence stayed with me. At Victor's hearing, I saw Owen across the courtroom. He looked smaller in a suit. For once, no one was standing in front of him. No dad whispering instructions. No relatives making excuses. No sister cleaning up the damage. When I testified, Owen stared at the table. Dad stared at me. I expected hatred. Instead, I saw something worse. Betrayal. As if telling the truth was the wound. As if the harm only began when someone finally named it. Afterward, Dad caught me in the hallway. An officer stood nearby, watching. Dad's voice was low. You destroyed this family. I looked at him for a long moment, then I said, no, I just stopped lying about what already destroyed it. He flinched. Just slightly. But I saw it. Months later, Victor recovered enough to walk with a cane. Sabrina agreed to speak with investigators, but only on her terms. I never contacted her. I didn't think I had the right. Nina sent me one message after Victor came home. Thank you for not becoming part of the cover-up. I read it 3 times, then I saved it, not because it made me feel heroic. It didn't, it made me feel responsible. There is a difference. My family never went back to normal. Some relatives stopped speaking to me. A few apologized quietly, usually when no one else could hear. Mom and I rebuilt slowly. Dad wrote me 1 letter from jail. I almost threw it away. Instead, I opened it. It was 3 pages long. Most of it was about grief, about the son he lost, about the fear that swallowed him after Owen was born, about how one compromise became another until he no longer knew where the line was. Near the end, he wrote 1 sentence I believed. I thought I was saving him, but I taught him he never had to save himself. There was no perfect ending after that. Owen didn't suddenly become sorry. Dad didn't magically become the father I wished he had been. Sabrina didn't get 13 years back. Victor didn't walk away untouched. And I did not feel brave every day. Some days, I felt lonely. Some days, I missed the family I thought I had. But then I remembered that the family I missed had required silence from everyone Owen hurt, including me. Dad asked me to lie to police about my brother. He told me it was to protect our family. But the truth was, our family had been protected for years by the pain of other people. This time, when the truth came knocking, I opened the door. And for the first time in my life, I let Owen answer for himself.